p.m. At this time, we'll call to order the regularly scheduled Charter Township of Orion Zoning Board of Appeal meeting scheduled for this date at this time. Please call the roll.
Dan Durham.
Yes, here.
John Walker. Here. Mike Flood.
Here.
Tony Cook.
Here.
Diane Danaskis. Here. David Goodlow.
I'm here.
Thank you. We have a quorum present. Next, the minutes of our last meeting, the February 13th meeting. Does any member of the board have any concerns or issues they'd like to raise? If not, a motion would be in order.
I can't make a motion. I wasn't there at the meeting.
Mr. Chair, move to accept the minutes of the meeting.
Thank you. I'll support. We have a motion by Mr. Walker and support by myself. Please call the roll. It's scratch that. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Pass. Next, we have a short agenda tonight, agenda review and approval. Does any member of the board have any concerns or questions about our one case?
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve the agenda as submitted.
Thank you.
Support.
I have a motion and a support. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Get right into it. Case AB 2023-03, Metro Detroit sign for Culvers, 4979 Grand Avenue, Sidwell, 09-32-400-099. Petitioner is seeking two variances from sign ordinance 153, Zone BIZ, Section 7, permitted non-residential ground and wall signs. Number one is a variance for 3 wall signs above the allowed 1 wall sign for a total of 4 wall signs totaling 134.06 square feet. Number two is a variance for 1 ground sign above the allowed 1 ground sign for a total of 2 ground signs, a monument sign and a menu board. And 2 variances, some zoning ordinance 78, Article 34, Section 34.03B. Number one is a 30.07-foot front yard setback variance from the required 40 feet for a ground sign to be 9.93 feet from the front property line to the south. And number two, a 9.49 side yard setback variance from the required 20 feet for a ground sign to be 10.51 feet from the side property line to the east. Do we have a representative for the petitioner? Come on up. Introduce yourself, please, and let us know what your variances are about.
Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Paul Dieters. I am with Metro Signs and Lighting, 11444 Colts Avenue in Warren. And thank you for your consideration this evening. I'll just give a brief overview of what we're hoping for and the rationale for those. And if you don't mind, I'd like to just start with the wall signs. As you know, Mr. Zimmer has a Culver's in town here that he's enjoyed operating and has been very successful with that, and was thrilled to have an opportunity to get a second store here. Unlike the other location, here, unfortunately, there are some competitors across the street who have a considerable signage advantage to them. And if the board might, one of them is the Panda Express at the corner. Has wall signs on all 4 elevations, as well as a large ground sign. And then just down the road on the opposite direction, both the Arby's and the Wendy's not only have a very large highway exposure sign, but they also have multiple wall signs on each elevation. So we're hoping here this evening for your consideration. We think that there is a precedent that Culver's has in other communities that really it's not only a functional standpoint for the signs, but also it's an aesthetic standpoint. The way the buildings are designed for the towers, they're set up to have really a modest wall sign that's to scale and appropriate for the size and the type of the building. We think it adds to the appeal of each of those facades. So, secondly, I would say for the monument sign, very difficult there, you could see, is based on the layout of the property and what was approved by the site plan approval process and the traffic flow and required parking and such. Where the sign is proposed is really about one of the only practical places that it could go on there without getting into a paved area or taking parking spaces out of the mix. And then regarding the drive-through menu board and the requirement that it's set back from the window. As you know, at Culver's, there's a pretty fair amount of traffic there when they're busy. They like to be able, it takes them a little bit longer than a lot of quick service restaurants based on the type of offerings that they have. So they like to have a little bit of a stack, if you will, in the industry that they would call that for their drive-through operation. If there's really no place within 20 feet of the pickup window to locate that sign, that would mean such that the drive-through menu board would be actually located on the building itself, and it really wouldn't give the right appropriate angle nor the distance for them to be able to prepare the food and space their guests out enough to do that efficiently. So that's in a nutshell what I have, and we're happy to answer any questions that you may have. And Mr. Zimmer also is available to answer any concerns that the board might have.
I just have one, and it's not really a question, and I know you're already aware of this. The other businesses that you went off stating earlier in their sign advantages, you know that they're in another jurisdiction.
I do, and in fact, and Mr. Zimmer and I had discussed that too, and understand that, that's not terribly or necessarily a concern for the township. Just the fact of the matter is that it's a competitive item that he is going to have to address, and we're hoping that as such that might factor into your decision, just make it a little bit easier for him to compete with those from a branding standpoint.
Thank you, board members.
Trying to find this on my screen here. I saw in your packet, Paul, right?
Yes, sir.
If I call you your first name? You can just call me Mike. Where your practical difficulty is the topographical layout of that property, especially on that west side. I was over there looking at that.
To the large trees on the adjacent property?
Yeah.
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 Yeah, not only that, is that a concern, but also the fact that there's a proposed development that's coming in for another restaurant, and the footprint of that restaurant, as we stand, it's not under yet, but I believe is going to be even closer to the road, which is going to make it more difficult. The culverts will be set back a little bit in farther from that, just the way the traffic has to go around there. So that identification is really critical for him.
And I noticed when you're asking for the 3 extra wall signs, they don't exceed the 200 square foot total maximum area, so I like that. And I can understand why you'd want it on the north. That's where the hotels are going to be built back there.
That is correct, yes.
And if I was in one of those hotels, I would have to take my car out on that road, and if I could see that culvert, I'd like to walk to it. You know, I mean, so identification's a lot there, I understand.
You bet. You bet. It's a very unique property in that. Not only that, but the access coming from the Menards and the way you would get in, there's multiple viewing angles of that and multiple opportunities for people to get to that. But it's sort of boxed in there a little bit with foliage on one side and another building that's real close. And it's quite a bit different than the other location that he has on Lapeer Road now, or in Jocelyn.
And addressing the ground sign, now that's because it's where you have to position the menu board, because it's outside of the 20 feet, you're having to ask for an extra ground sign. This is common sense. And in the placement of your monument sign out front would be in the parking lot if you met the ordinance.
It would.
And you already got a site plan approved, so we're not gonna have to put a ground sign in the middle of a parking lot.
We were hoping to say that.
But we've had that same problem all along there for like Tommy's Car Wash, the Mattress, Checkers. They've all come in and asked for, get a little closer to that road instead of being 40 feet off that road. That's just my 2 cents worth. Also, I want to go on the record, being an elected township official, that I have no financial interest or whatever in this. Mr. Zimmer has never contributed 1 penny to my campaign financing, and that's a public record. Anybody go and look at it. But I just want to get that on the record, that as an elected official, I have no interest or whatsoever in this.
Mr. Chair, I understand in particular, the difficulty with the menu board. The food at Culver's does take more time to prepare than you would at a McDonald's or other fast foods. And, you need that additional space to be able to get the food out to your customers. It can get quite backed up. So I truly understand the need for that.
You mentioned a hotel. So which hotel are you referencing?
There's a proposed development behind the rest, for 3 hotels that are going to be going in there. And they'll have line of sight to the Culver's restaurant, and it'll be a nice, attractive and place for guests of those. If there are 3 hotels, that could wind up being a nice customer base for Culver's. But just to help them identify that, because they're not going to enter right there, they're going to enter from farther east or west, and an identification on the building would help certainly for those visitors. As you know, obviously, most of them, or many of them, would be from out of town and not familiar with the area.
And I also noticed, as the chairman did, you compared it to restaurants that were actually in another jurisdiction. So compared to the Checkers, had you done a one-to-one comparison there?
So we have, and the Checkers does not have this type of signage. There are other locations within the township that do. I know
Right, but we were speaking about competition, and so that would be your immediate competition. And that was,
Sure. There is the Checkers does not, but there are other McDonald's and Taco Bells and Wendy's, Kentucky Fried Chicken that have multiple wall signs within the township as well.
okay.
And I do think too is that the Checkers is just, it's a lot more open there. They don't have the really tight proximity for the adjacent properties or developments. So it's a lot more open where they are relative to where the proposed Culver's development is.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Flood.
Mr. Walker, you can correct me if I'm incorrect on this, but with that biz zone down there, that's the Brown Road Innovative District, the way they got that set up is that where this Culver's is at, and as right now, it hasn't been approved yet, but it's on to be done eventually, maybe. Immediately west of that, and they'll be sharing the same driveway, most likely, is a Texas Roadhouse to be built right next to it west. And then behind, there's 3 approved hotels. What these 2 properties out front, actually this Culver's and the Texas, those are considered outlots, because that development goes back, what is it, 1,600 feet, something like that, all the way back to the pipeline back there. And this is considered an outlot. And the same thing when they built Tommy's. That was an outlot where that mattress place is now. Because what they're trying to do is package these properties together instead of having, little individual packages. That's the whole idea of this Brown Road Innovative District. So eventually, that's all going to be filled in. Time will tell. And they're starting to build the hotel down there now on the other corner. They finally broke
Yeah.
that. But General Motors is the biggest reason those hotels are starting to be built, because of the expansion with the General Motors plant. But that's got to give you a 50,000-foot view of what's going on down there.
Walker, you have anything?
Well, I have a concern about the sightline. Has there been any studies, Mr. Goodlow, with regard to sightlines on the, if we grant variances and set to within 9 feet?
Yeah, you want your corner clearance, that wouldn't encroach into the corner clearance.
There'd be no encroachment, in your opinion?
No, not in my opinion, when
Okay.
I looked at it. The reason also too is because the Culver's property is in a certain location. There's also the property of the full development.
Right.
And that's why they need it for the Culver's property. So I don't think it infringes on the line of sight at all.
All right. And I have a question of you. Any room to maneuver a little bit on these things, or are these hard and fast numbers and numbers of signs and square footages? Or is there possibility to reduce these requests by some degree?
Well, you know, what, I would, is it a possibility? Sure. And the thing is, I think you could see from the elevation drawings, each of the, as Mr. Flood had mentioned earlier, in total, the signs are still underneath the total that would be allowed, and each, the 3 additional wall signs are less than 4 feet by 8 feet. So they're fairly small as they are, and I think that when you look at how the towers are constructed around the 4 elevations of the building, I think they look nice. They're an appropriate size and fit that space well, so from an aesthetic standpoint. Is there a chance they could be downsized a little bit? But the concern that we have, though, is for the traffic on Brown Road to be able to see that. They do sit back a fair ways, too. So, and if somebody's going to try to be seeing that wall sign from the hotels, which are going to be quite a bit farther back yet, I think anything going much smaller than that is going to get to be more and more difficult for motorists to discern. So we'd, if possible, we'd like to keep them at that size. I think it's an appropriate scale for that type of building.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Cook?
This is one of the things that I start to think about, is if we've got this development going in and the ground sign, and then there's 3 hotels coming in, is this sign going to be, Mr. Paul, Betters, I'm sorry, is this a sign that's you're prepared to put other businesses on also at some point?
No, this is.
Solely for Culver's?
Yeah, yeah, so it's a fairly small ground sign. The sign that we're proposing is only 8 feet overall, total. And it's sort of got a unique, the Culver's oval-shaped logo, and then just a real small, basically a one-line message center that enable them to reference whatever special or promotion they may be running at that type of year. So it's not something that's going to be a big multi-use signage.
Single line, it's going to reference, okay. Whatever that might be, whether that's the flavor of the day or whatever, right?
Yeah, that.
Okay. Yeah, we're back to that discussion, so. Okay, good deal. Okay.
See, the problem with corporate sign packages, and you're by no stretch anywhere near in the first bunch that ever came, we've had them all over. And the problem I have with them is every property is different. So when somebody brings a corporate sign package and pours it on the table and says, this is all we can do, that's kind of problematic. But you made mention of the fact that, I believe you said, you believe that what is here would be the best for the business?
It absolutely would. And there are, knowing the limitations that are here, this building was somewhat constructed, and the towers were constructed to downsize them a little bit from what the standard offerings are. They recently did a sign in Sterling Heights at 16 Mile and Van Dyke. It has signs on all 4 sides of the building, which are significantly larger than what we're proposing. Different sign ordinance there. They're trying to be more respectful of what the community standards are, and what the spirit of the ordinance is in the township. So we tried to present something that's more in line with the flavor of the other signage that's available and has been approved in the township.
Thank you. Board have anything additional for this gentleman? Need a minute? That's fine too. No hurry.
Mr. Chairman, I'm prepared to make a motion.
Okay, please do.
All right. Well, anybody in the public wants to comment? Is anybody here?
No. No.
We
That's
we-
about-
With Joe, with respect to Joe there,
we could wait for people to show up.
I have to apologize. I caught a cold coming back here to this weather, and
I'll be happy to come up if you want.
in the matter of ZBA case AB 2023-03, Metro Detroit signs for Culvers, 4979 Grad Avenue, Sidwell 09, 32-400-099. I would move that the petitioner's request for 2 variances from sign ordinance 153 zone biz, section 7, permitted non-residential ground and wall signs. 1, a variance for 3 wall signs above the allowed 1 wall sign for a total of 4 wall signs totaling 134.06 square feet. Number 2, a variance for 1 ground sign above the allowed 1 ground sign for a total of 2 ground signs, a monument sign and a menu board. And 2 variances from zoning ordinance 78, article 34, section 34.03B. 1, a 30.07 foot front yard setback variance from the required 40 feet for a ground sign to be 9.93 feet from the front property line south. And number 2, a 9.49 foot side yard setback variance from the required 20 feet for a ground sign to be 10.51 feet from the side property line east be granted because the petitioner did demonstrate that the following standards for these variances have been met in this case. And they set forth facts which show that in this case, the petitioner shows the following practical difficulty. One of the major things, due to unique characteristics of the property in that location. And the following are exceptional or extraordinary circumstances or conditions applicable to the property involved do not generally apply to other properties in the same district or zone. Is that because of the way the site plan was approved, the 1 monument sign, not the menu board, but the ground sign, would be in his parking lot if he didn't get this relief. Also, according to the building official, it will not have an impact on the line of sight to either egress or ingress the property to Brown Road. The variance is necessary for the preservation and enjoyment of a substantial property right possessed by other property in the same zone or vicinity based on the following facts. The petitioners did compare it to the signs that are not in our municipality, but also along Brown Road, there we had the same kind of, with this development, we've had the same issues with the other new that have gone in there and other businesses. The granting of the variance or modifications will not be material detrimental to the public welfare, material interest of the property, or improvements in such zone or district where the property is located, based on the following findings of fact. The reason that the petitioner is asking for 3 additional wall signs is he wants to be able to put them on each compass of the building so they can be seen from all directions of Brown Road, and also, especially when the 3 new developments for the hotels are built in the back, they can see that from that location. Further, based on the following findings of fact, the granting of this variance would not impair an adequate supply of light adjacent to the property, would not increase in congestion in public streets. In fact, the signage will help decrease the public trying to find the location. Will not increase the danger of fire and danger of public safety. We have a letter in the packet where the fire marshal has no concerns with these variances. It will not unreasonably diminish or impair property values within the surrounding area. fact, building of these new establishments will increase property values, or in other respect impair the public health, safety, comfort, morals, or welfares of the inhabitants of the Charter Township of Orion. And one last thing in the motion, I also like to say that these received the plans for this, date stamped, received February 9th, 2023. That's my motion.
Support.
Further discussion by the board? We have a motion on the floor by Mr. Flood, supported by Mrs. Danaskis. Please call the roll.
Diane Danaskis, yes. Tony Cook?
Yes.
John Walker?
Yes.
Mike Flood?
Yes.
Dan Durham?
Yes, motion passes. You're on your way.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Good luck.
Yeah, one question for you, Mr. Zimmer.
Thank you.
What's your planned date of opening, do you think?
Well, I don't want to be a smart guy, but when it's done.
We know that.
So, well, I'm hoping in basically May of this year, which is pretty darn soon, but unfortunately, we've had a lot of rain and I gotta have a parking lot, and so as soon as I get that parking lot done, the building, Mr. Mike Flood, is about completed on the inside, but because of the conditions on the outside, it may take a little longer. So I guess I'm under the mercy of dear God and Mother Nature, but hopefully no later than June, but don't tell my contractors that.
One more thing, Joel.
Sure.
Approximately how many jobs will that be
I'm
available?
thinking about 60. I've got 10 in training right now, Mike. At the other store, my management's already in training, so we would be ready if we can get a drive-through in our parking lot and so forth, but.
Great, thank you.
And I want to thank the board for being so kind, and I look forward to doing another building that will be, and a restaurant that everybody will be proud of in the Township of Orion. As you well know, I've been here for 45 years. And I hope I'm not going to say I'm hoping I'm here another 45, but I sure look forward to opening this store. I'm excited about it and appreciate all your support. Thank you, everybody.
Good luck, sir.
Thank you. Good evening.
Next, we have public comment. We're about to lose our public, so we'll bypass that. Communications, anybody have anything? I have a question for Mr. Goodloe. It's not a communication as much
Yeah,
as
go
it's
ahead.
a question. I was looking at the date certain memo here, and it appears that the next ZBA meeting has been canceled already. Was that done administratively?
I don't believe we have done that yet, have we? Do we have to vote on that?
Well, no, we haven't done anything, and it doesn't call for us to. That's why I was curious. It says March 27th meeting canceled on our date certain memo. And I just didn't want the phone to ring, oh my God, I should have said
I
something.
don't remember if we voted on that. I wasn't here at the last meeting. Was it voted on the last meeting to
I
cancel?
believe it was.
I don't think you guys,
so.
They don't usually go that far out.
Oh,
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Flood.
to be cautious, I will put a motion on the floor that we will cancel the March 27th Zoning Board of Appeals meeting due to a lack of agenda items.
I believe that's an appropriate motion. Thank you. Moved by Ms.
yeah, did you see the memo? It says there are no agenda items there for the zoning, therefore I'm canceling that meeting. Is it not neat? So that's what the memo says.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Mr. Flood, supported by Mr. Cook. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting is canceled, probably twice now. We're good.
Covers that.
We also have a memo in here, our joint meeting. Now, do I remember you said you weren't going to be able to be
I will
here?
not be, I'll be traveling, yes, sir.
The date for the.
Our joint meeting is next week, I believe at 6:30. I've got it at home. But anyway, what I'm trying to get around is if you folks have anything that you want to see appear on that meeting agenda for the joint meeting next week, you need to get a hold of Lynn. I have not put anything on it myself. But if you have anything that you want to make sure is talked about, give her a call, and if she can put it on, she will. No committee reports? Mr. Walker, nothing going on?
No, sir.
Mr. Flood, you've been out of town. Member comments, anybody? Me either.
I got one thing that's in here.
Mr. Flood?
Did you mention, maybe you mentioned this, you got to complete your computer training by March 20th?
I did not mention
I
that.
see there's a note in here on that.
Okay.
What happens the other one, I think you get locked out of your computer, I think.
I haven't got anything by the office. I'll have to call and make sure I'm current because I haven't got anything waiting to be done.
Oh, it came out back, geez, like in November or December,
So
so
hopefully I
that
did
far back.
already, but I'll check.
I'll check with Lynn, because I tried to get in and I couldn't, and she couldn't get me in either.
Oh.
So I'll try.
Ms. Cook, do you have something?
This is the part that's, where we're just chatting about things that could make this better, that doesn't go on the record part.
Well, let's finish up and turn everything off.
Okay.
No member comments, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Support, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We're finished, thank you.
Your microphone's on.